right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Global Council for Innovative Organizations. This organization was created a year and a half ago with the Dubai Government Excellence Program and the Global Innovation Management Institute. Its objective was to pull together the world's leading organizations with innovation frameworks, which were the best of the best. We have added partners since then from around the world, from organizations in Spain like the SAE, to organizations in the Philippines like Ayala, to organizations partner organizations like Verizon and partner organizations in Australia and other parts of the world. Our objective is to have a monthly webinar to educate the market and the world of three things. One is, what are the most important trends that are going to affect our society and change the world? Number two, what are the most innovative frameworks that people are using and sharing them for managing innovation and driving innovation faster, quicker, to do bigger and bolder things, to react to the biggest issues our planets are going to be facing. And the third one is essentially to create an enhanced collaboration amongst all of us to say, how can we help each other go faster, quicker in what we're trying to do? So with that, this is our mission, and we are looking for new collaboration partners worldwide. We're looking for people in different parts of the world, and we're going to add members every single month as we grow this organization. Dubai Government Excellence Program, with permission of the Dubai Government, Global Innovation Management Institute, the leading certification body for innovation in the world. We look forward to any conversations to joining us and talking more about this. Today, we have a fantastic speaker on a topic that is going to affect all of us. This topic is about trends around aging. The world is getting older, and the world is not going to slow down. There are more people who are going to be living in the 80s, 90s, and 100s than we've ever imagined before. And we are not ready for it. Opportunities it creates for business, the opportunity it creates, and problems it creates for governments, the problems and opportunity it creates for just society in general are going to be tremendous. For those who are not prepared for it, be warned. Those who are preparing for it, the world is bright, and we're going to live longer and better. Our speaker today comes from Newcastle, from the Center of Aging, or Living Longer. I wonder what we should call it, Nick. And Nick Palmarini, a colleague of ours, a good friend, was here in Cambridge with us for many years, working with IBM in their Institute for Aging, and now in the Institute of Aging in Newcastle, has built a whole center of excellence around this topic. He has spoken worldwide on this topic. He is an invited speaker everywhere, and perhaps one of the best speakers I've ever run into, period. Nick, I give you the floor. Give yourself your own introductions. Come on in. Let's first talk for a few minutes before we give you a chance to speak about your presentation. Nick, welcome. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Hitendra. Always you prepare the ground, and then everyone is expecting, whatever. I'll do my best to fulfill the expectation, Hitendra.
Nick, just out of curiosity, this topic that we're going to talk about, how long ago did you start? When did you start talking about this thing? When did you think it was interesting?
Yeah, it was 2006, the first time I started working on the topic. And the journey was basically from the accessibility that I was carrying most of my time at that time, and switching in a very functional way and wrong way, if I might say, that from accessibility, since we're getting older, we can gather some disabilities. Therefore, technology can do something, but the topic is far different and broader, and I hope I can explain what I mean today in my presentation.
So for most of us, as our hair goes from black to brown or to gray, or our parents get older, it doesn't matter. It touches every one of us who's in the audience today, or anybody who's missing this topic. It will affect them. So with that, Nick, I want to give you the floor and,
yeah, sure.
and get the presentation started, and looking forward to some great insights. Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure. I hope you can see the screen. Do you, right?
We can.
Okay, right. Yeah, so first of all, thanks for being with us today. It's such a pleasure. As Hitendra said, I consider myself a friend of all these organizations that are involved today. And as friends, I mean, we share not only the professional side of ourselves, but also the personal side of ourselves. And the topic I'm going to cover today, which is my, let me say, day-to-day bread. I just breathe and research about the topic every day. It's something that combines these two dimensions, which is the professional side and the personal side, because as Hitendra said so well, this is something that it's related to all of us. So my presentation today will be a quick journey on what's happening around aging and longevity. So let me introduce the second word, and we'll talk a little bit along the presentation. How this is affecting our life, what is still missing out there, and you will see how big is the opportunity both for the economy and society to foresee a future that sometimes we tend to forget being our future, and how this is so rich of potential opportunities for all of us, that I think it's time that we come together, leverage together the possibilities that the innovation that we all, search, claim, sometimes cry out loud, have to be gathered and collected. It can't be done by one organization only. It's only something that can be done globally, because it's a global topic and requires different cultural backgrounds and approaches, just to respect the different culture and background, while we just look and face the innovation around the topic. So as you see from the title, I keep on saying that aging is our best opportunity. So my purpose today, just want to show you why it's our best opportunity as a society. So I think you know that something is happening. So I don't want to bother on the demographic side. Just to let you know that Japan, which is the fast aging country, and let me say the oldest country in terms of life expectancy and number of people that are over the age of 65 today, it's not alone. By 2050, 31 countries, including China, which is, as you know, from a demographic perspective, a pretty big country, will have the same population that we have in Japan today. So this is happening. It's happening globally. And please do not do the mistake thinking, oh, we're a young continent. Think about, for example, South America or Africa, because aging process is very different by continent. And those that are considered from a demographic perspective, young continents, they're just speeding that fast. Just to remind you, for example, in Africa, getting old means be 45, not 65 or 75, like we could envision in OECD countries, okay? So my first point is just think this thing is happening to you, wherever you are. Now, the other point that I think it's important to remind is that there's something happening, not only in terms of aging, but in terms of our process of aging. Over the course of the last half a century, life expectancies has continued to increase steadily by 2 years each decade. Basically, just like every decade we have lived, we just gather, let me say, 20% free of time extra. And you did nothing, I did nothing, nobody did nothing between us to do something specifically on this thing. This is happening for many reasons: education, health education, understanding process of aging, taking care of ourselves. So it's something which is happening independently of what we do every day. I'm sure you're doing something for yourself. Probably you have changed some behaviors, or maybe you have learned that it's doing certain things, for example, like smoking, that we didn't know was so harmful just literally 30 years ago, could be dangerous. So you avoid to smoke, or you quit smoking. So there's a lot of many little societal things which are happening together with research. Aging, anyway, and getting older is not something that didn't happen before. So the point is that I just picked 3 people here, like Galileo, Newton, and Michelangelo, that didn't have antibiotics, vaccination, or organ transplants, but they did have famine, plague, war. So they had the worst situation as possible, but they lived quite a life. And what's important to remark is that these 3 people, for example, like many others, you included, are performing better in later life. So most of their best work has been done in the later side of their life, meaning that there is a lot we can give as humans to humanity, to society, not necessarily in the early life. but in the process of living the life, in learning, in sharing, in understanding, we become who we are, or probably we become the best of ourselves. So sometimes we also forget that beautiful intelligence can be brought back to society if we only wanted to gather that intelligence. So three things that are happening right now. The first, that we are reaching old age in generally better health. And again, I explained already why. The second, I think we have learned in the last few years that the biology somehow suggested us there is not one fixed program for aging. You and me, we age very differently based on very different situations or conditions. One, it's basically obviously genetic, but also where you live or the type of life you live. It's influencing a lot your process of aging. And the third point, which is again quite recent, it's suggesting that it's evident that aging is not a process that can be changed. Someone said it's malleable, meaning that you can literally become the sculptor of your own life if you think about life as a statue and shape it as you want if you're aware what it could be good for your health. Which leads me to one big transition that is happening right now. So this is my second takeaway for you. Start thinking about defining the process of aging from the longevity perspective. Up to literally 2-3 years ago, basically every program was based in this idea of promoting healthy aging as a process, as a practice. The UK government, where I'm based, has one very interesting research agenda. They put £7.5 billion on innovations in general. One is artificial intelligence. The second is climate change. The third is, let me say, innovation around mobility. So think about autonomous vehicles. And the fourth one was healthy aging. I mean was, because a year and a half ago, together with our support, the UK government changed the agenda and the definition. So they're not talking anymore about healthy aging. They're talking about healthy longevity. Why this is an important switch? It's important because longevity is introducing at least two concepts. The first is that we are not only caring about aging, meaning that live as long as possible, but we live as long as possible in a healthy condition. So the word longevity is introducing healthy lifespan. We want to live as long as we can, obviously, but in a healthiest way as possible. Is that not real meaning to get old, but with all the possible conditions that can really could become a burden to our life. And the second is introducing the concept of prevention. Within longevity, you start thinking that if you are able to do some changes of your life course, then you are able to change the course of your life, as I said before, meaning that you can start understanding that aging is just a natural process of life that could be changed all over the course of your life. So if you start thinking about healthy behaviors in your 20s, or even earlier in your teenage, then you can probably have different outcome all over your life. And that's something that I think it's becoming quite obvious on one hand, very hard to be implemented by government, but it's the area where I think we can all work together to design our future lives. Now, as I said before, there's a lot of innovation happening in the space of healthy aging. And one of the reasons why we're living healthier for longer is given by some of the few examples I'm showing you right now. For example, Patients Like Me is a fantastic platform that allows patients to share about their experiences, the drugs they're taking, what is working, what is not working. Figure Eight, an amazing Cambridge-based spin-off from the MIT, which has developed very smart technologies to understand the micro movement of your body, which is important to understand how you move, but also is important to help companies who are developing technology like this one, let me say, to design better devices. And if you can argue that, well, I don't want a robot to help me, move my hands, well, try to be paralyzed or just try to have your, I don't know, leg broken for a while and see if you won't be happy somehow to be supported by technologies which are becoming more and more feasible, not only functional. Functional, okay, we've been good with functions, but can we improve, for example, how this technology will look like? And for example, we're working with a company which is embedding the technology that you see in the fabric of your garments, as well as this company, which is doing the same as the other one, helping you walking. But guess if this structure, which is quite scary if you see from this perspective, will be embedded in your jeans. Would you buy it? And then obviously there is a lot of things that are happening from the biological side of our process of aging. For sure, there is a lot happening in understanding better who we are. Think about the DNA. Up to 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, you could have an understanding of DNA only if you were able to go in the most advanced labs all over California or wherever you have in mind in the world. Very expensive, very complicated. Then we're being able to decode DNA, and then it's become a sort of a commodity, up to the point that there are companies like Nebula Genomics, which is probably the most advanced test you can do straight away with your saliva, that are bringing DNA in our daily life. Therefore, if you buy one of these tests, you can also have a subscription for Netflix or to Amazon for free for 6 months. Just to let you know, there's something happening, not only on the innovation side of research and the core tools that will help us to understand more about ourselves, but it's also happening on the marketing side. And think for a second how much there is out there to explore. And going towards this direction, there are companies which are now developing interesting supplements, which, by the way, are not FDA approved, okay? So this is one of those. It's called Elysium. It's a supplement. It's called NADA+, which is a coenzyme that helps to slow the process of aging of your cells. And what is interesting here are two things that have to be said. The first one, people in the board of this company, you have 8 Nobel Prizes here. And again, it's a signal that something is happening if 8 Nobel Prizes sits on the same board of a company, which is basically selling supplement. The second is the way this supplement is sold. If you see it, it's not, let me say, traditional kind of supplement you can buy everywhere. Look at the packaging and the fact it's only sold by subscription. So it's entering in a mechanism of bringing the idea of slowing the process of aging in a very commercial way, using the same iconography that you can find in probably the best beauty products. And this is a flow. This is Juvenescence, a company that has been established a couple of years ago in UK, which started entering on the market with this kind of a metabolic switch, which is helping you, for example, to reach your keto diet. And it's, again, another signal there's something is happening in a very different way as it was before. It's not something only for, super rich or people living in certain societal contexts, but it starts slowly entering in the day-to-day life. The founder of this company is Jim Mellon, and Jim Mellon is one of the core investors in the space of aging, but one of the other is for sure Google, which is the only company that at that time in 2013 focused a lot of energy in the overall aging and longevity industry, opening Calico. Now, if you go on the Alphabet page, which is the holding of Google, look what is the only link you will find. The only link that will lead you away from this page, and our friends at Google knows a little bit about how, playing with their CEO. When you reach a page, they want you to do a specific thing, and the specific thing they want you to do is just to click on Calico. Now, Calico has been on the market for the last 10 years now, because it was 2013, and since then, if you check out, they didn't release many news, so much information, any specific, let me say, loud outcome, because the topic they're studying, slowing our process of aging, it's very complicated. However, as I said before, Jim Mellon, someone that knows a little bit about investment, said, well, we have investment cravings like Bitcoin and marijuana, so why don't longevity could be the most popular stock market craze of all time? And again, this is my third takeaway for you. start thinking about something happening in the background, which is obviously related to the innovation in research, which is obviously related to the innovation in making money for those who are interested in the topic. But it's literally also interesting if you combine these two factors, something that finally is related to us as human, because most of the research which is behind of the process of aging is the research of life somehow. So all these companies are making a lot of work that probably we could benefit in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years maybe, but could be some of those innovations that potentially could be crucial for our future. But if we stay on the business for a second, look what happened literally in the last 365 days. In November 2021, Jeff Bezos decided to develop an investment quite heavy. I think he put $3 billion in a company called Altos Labs, which again is exploring the technologies and the innovations that can help us slow in the process of aging. On the other hand, literally, the Saudi fund decided to invest 1 billion per year for the next 10 years in developing research and supporting research in the space of aging and longevity. I think you heard me saying properly 2 or 3 times, not living forever. We're talking about slowing the process of aging, okay? I think I will come back in a second, but I just want you to be, all of us, to be very clear. Nobody here is talking about living forever or staying forever young. Here we are working in helping people living healthier, longer life. That's the right definition about longevity. So it's the healthy lifespan that interests us. All the extremes, left and right, you could see all this ideal curve of life. On the right, live forever. On the left, stay forever young. This is not what matters to us. And I think something is also happening in the Gulf. These are news coming out literally a couple of weeks ago. The first one is that the number around the industry of aging and longevity is roughly 33 trillions, which is, again, a number you can trust or not. It's depend on how you see it, but it's been quite validated by many sources now. But what is interesting is that in the Gulf, and specifically in the UAE, you can see how some innovation is literally feeding this process. First robotic biobank in 2023, and it's happening there, meaning that this innovation is not only for the classic Western coast of the United States in California, or some labs in Singapore or Switzerland that typically has this kind of background and heritage. No, it's happening everywhere. Now, as I said before, this is nothing new, honestly. And you see me in one wonderful place in northern Italy. It's called Castello della Manta, where you can see in the background an amazing fresco that has been painted, I think it was the 13th century. So we go back quite a long in time, which is somehow suggesting there is a process in which we're always searching for this ideal source of innovation that can help us living a healthier, longer life. What's the point? The paradox is that we keep on talking about this thing, but in what society are we living? What is the old people today? How do we consider them? How do we see ourselves? Is a positive stereotype about old people? Do we have any concern who are the old people? Do we respect them? Do we consider them as a resource or as a pain? And I think that's the counter side that I really would like to discuss with you today, because we're not only looking for those industries and research that help us living healthier, longer life. Because the question is living a healthier, longer life where? In which society? Because if you think about aging as a discrimination, it's something that we should have to start considering it properly. This is a classic research that I do periodically. You go on Google Ngram, you put the word you see on the top, which are, let me say, some discrimination: sexism, racism, ageism, ableism, adultism. And you see that some of these discrimination, like racism or sexism, that we haven't solved at all. I just want you to be very clear, but at least we have learned how to recognize them. Look, the others, basically nobody knows about the discrimination called ageism. And then ableism is the discrimination towards people with disabilities. And adultism is the new definition of ageism when you are discriminating younger adults. So ageism in general is discrimination over older people related, it's a discrimination related to age, but typically has been related to the older demographic. So there was a missing world thinking about when we discriminated the younger demographic. You are too young to do this job, or you are too old to do this job. These are two discriminations that are embedded in our cultural background, in our life, in our societal system that we don't even know we have as a discrimination. And you see, again, these words are literally words that are only perceived by the academia. Only the academics are talking about these things. It's not something in the public domain. And in fact, it happens in everyday life. This is my bathroom, and you see I framed in yellow those products. They're basically suggesting anti-age as a description of the product. Now, anti-age is just like you're saying, oh, it's against me because you are aging. So are products against yourself? So properly better defined could be probably products that helps reducing the effects of aging or slowing the process of aging, but not anti-aging. Because again, this is what is the narrative out there. And if you see around some, for example, marketing trades, like these two examples, like this example, sorry, that I just found out from Nike, you see a classic cool marketing lifestyle suggestion: move more, run, don't sit here. But in the same time, isn't it style design? I mean, I'm old, I want to sit here. Why are you pulling out where I could sit? And so if you see from some perspective, we're always, let me say, buying by design the fact that this nice communication is for the younger demographic. What about the others? And somehow there are actors in the field like Allure magazines that decided that was too much. They wanted to stop the idea that anti-aging is something that they were promoting over their magazines. So they decided not to accept anymore products and services that basically were claiming as anti-aging, which it's somehow much needed if you want to make a change. Now, sorry, if you go in a beauty store and you look for the definition of the top brands, you will see that more and more they start changing their narrative, okay? And you see they start switching that narrative in something that it's little less discriminative compared to other type of descriptions. It's a slow process because nobody knows about the discrimination. So you see on the right, a new magazine that, being completely unaware of what was happening, literally called itself anti-age. So it's exactly against what I was trying to describe before. Now, what type of idea we have of old people today? That's a classic portrait of an Italian old age in the stereotypical perception of Italians towards people they're aging, as well as these ladies could be the classic stereotypical image of an older lady in whatever country somewhere. So they're playing tamburello happily somewhere in the middle of nowhere, thinking they have nothing to do, just clapping hands and being retired. Probably they have nothing else to do. So my question is, what about these people? Where are they? Because they are all around us. And you see there's people with a style, with a life, with a hyper style like this lady, even along the pandemic, which is them, which is us, which are the individuals we are. I mean, we've been in our journey of life. We've been 15 years old. We've been 30, we've been 50, we'll be 70. It's us. Yes, we change over time, but it doesn't change what drove us there, the traits of what makes us person that loves style, like these people, for example. And these are portraits of people I just took myself while traveling. And you see how much diversity is out there, which is very different from the stereotypical idea. You're old, probably you are that way, which is how we consider old people today. So I took some example. This is Iris Apfel, which honestly has his own style, but it doesn't interest me that she looks fancy or nice. What it interests me is that she has designed the collection with H&M not later than 6 months ago. And she is 100 year, 100, okay? Again, I don't want to celebrate the fact that she's 100 year and she's beautiful, smart, whatsoever. I'm just saying to all of you that if we get living longer, we have to consider the people in this society as a productive, not like something that we put away just because they're old. Because as I said before, Michelangelo did quite a decent job in his late 80s. So think if we just have forgot about him, or we would have, parked him somewhere else, not allowing to be who he is. We won't have a lot of art and history that we celebrate every day. And it's the same just like for Iris Apfel, or these two guys, which are a Japanese couple, which is literally making the news on Instagram because they have created their own style and they're telling their own story the way you see it. Or this is my friend Mark Colleton, which works in Boston. I don't know if it's very safe to go around in a Vespa drinking coffee without a helmet. However, that's the way he lives. Up to the point of this guy, maybe you've heard about him. He's Gianluca Vacchi, former entrepreneur. I don't mind about what it looks like. Everyone is free to do whatever he or she wants to. What is interesting of his story is that he started as an entrepreneur and now is a resident DJ in Ibiza, meaning that you can change. So if you live 100 years and you have already your experience of life, why not to do something else in your later life? And now there are opportunities that allows you to do it. You just have to trust yourself that you are allowed to do that. But it's not only yourself, it's the society around you that should suggest you should be allowed to do that. And then what we do? Well, advertisers spend 500% more on millennials. We know that the population that controls the wealth all over the world, obviously, are the older person because they had the time to gain some heritage and some wealth, and that still are the one that have the heritage. We typically don't target them. And what is also important is just to tell so obvious, and many of you which are over 50 know exactly what I'm saying here. 35% of people over 75 say that they only 35, say they felt old. Basically, people don't feel that age. It's also something happening formally. It's called equivalent age. That is suggesting that the 65 of today are very different from the 65 of 30, 40 years ago. And when you think about the 75 versus the 65, it's not only that you feel younger, let me say, for that age. You have 75, not 65, meaning that you have 10 years more anyway of experience, even if you're feeling 65. So it's very different to consider yourself in the process of aging and consider the different ages. They're changing over time, but with an add-on of experience that it's what makes the difference of us in the process of aging in a trajectory of longevity. So what are we offering to these people? Well, we offer people that are designed for the old. And again, on the right, you see a phone. Yes, could be functional, but it's screaming out, I am old. I am sort of a disabled person. I don't know if you ever tried the accessibility feature in your iPhone. If you haven't done before, do it, because probably you realize you don't need this kind of phone. Or the left thing, the things you see on the left, which is a PERS system, the classic button you press in case of emergency, only 14% of redemption. So people is using it only in a percentage of 14. And most of the time, people press the button just to talk with someone, not because they need support. So there is something else I think we can design and envision. Now, before showing you what we could do or what are some of the examples, let's go back to basic, just to let you understand the size of the opportunity. What you see here is the WHO mapping of the factors that influence health, right? So we can discuss about the percentage, but I think they're not far from reality. So if it's not 24 social circumstances, it will be 23. Well, trust me, nothing really changed in the big numbers. So if you see what is influencing our health, you see that there is a medical care, meaning that caring about ourselves using medicines or drugs worth 11% only. Then you have 22, which is genetic and biology, but 7, physical environment. Where do you live? How is the pollution around yourself? Are you living in a nice neighborhood? And 36, individual behavior. Smoking, not smoking. Are you having healthy lifestyles? Are you driving without seat belts? And finally, 24, social circumstances. Okay, were you around? What is the social environment in which you are in? So look at the percentage, 24, 36, 7% that are on the right side, let me say, of this frame, and the other 2 on the left side. Already told you what is in there, but basically, where do we invest? Yeah, we invest there. We invest typically in the ex-post events. So something is happened, and then we put all our money typically in the medical care. But it's not one that influences our health and longevity. That's just a consequence of we did something wrong, we try to fix it. But what if we invest instead of there on all the other dimensions? And if you understand the other dimension, and for example, let me pick only the environment, well, think about how much we can do in improving the environment that is connected to our process of aging and longevity, and how much we talk about the environment today, how much investments, how much of planting trees there or buying the next electric car. All those kind of things are related to our process of aging, and therefore, why don't we invest there in a structured way? So what if we invest in people, in us, instead of us, when we will be patients? And I guess that's probably the biggest opportunity that we have today. That's why I keep on saying that if we're able to address aging, that's the best opportunity. So this is my 5th takeaway for you today. So we keep on talking about the mega gazillions longevity economy opportunity, and we keep on developing only things for diseases, conditions, risk factors. Why we do it? Because we're ignorant and we are ageist. So we have our own bias. We're the first not to believe what we preach. We keep on saying, oh yes, we should do prevention, and we don't. We follow the wrong market segmentation and wrong business clustering. We keep on thinking about healthcare. It's very complicated to explain brands and industries that they should have to start looking at mobility, entertainment, social interactions, different products in housing, so many different dimensions that we never consider. We typically go easily at the end, and the end is healthcare. Also because the investment market always need to be reassured. If you go to an investor and explain, oh yes, there are X percentage of falling in later life are the most recurrent cause of hospitalization over people. So you have this classic data. So there are a million of companies that are trying to develop systems to understand if you have fallen in your home, which are absolutely lovely and fantastic. But there are 1 over 1,000 that is trying to understand why you have fallen and if you can prevent that falling. But investor says, well, that's too risky. Let's just go on the risk side. So the investors are easily to be convinced that when they see such a number, and they keep on feeding innovation research with money, they're addressing solution in the post phase, very few in the pre-phase, if pre-phase is preventing the things to happen. Now, just let me do an example. So you're spending all your day in the home. Are you doing some indoor activities? Because you are doing some indoor activities. Did we consider this market? Market of gaming is, you see the numbers out there, 545 billions in 2028, and it's growing like mad. Are we developing some cool gaming for an aging demographic? I'm not saying literally basic gaming, something cool that could be attractive for these people, for us in the process of aging, instead of a simple shoot here or shoot there. Could be something different. Or are you family members okay? Are you doing any outdoor activity? You're going out. How many of you do have a pet? And then, okay, there's an industry out there which is worth 232 billion, and is the industry of pet. And we're so keen to spend money for our pets. So why don't we develop innovation that could allow us through our pets to understand more about us? And finally, what are the many things that we do every day around us? Not necessarily in your home, which is the classic other field where you invest a lot in terms of innovation. How is your grip, for example, when you're pruning your rows? It's so important to understand the grip. Look at the market. For example, gardening and do it yourself, it's a quite big market. Are we investing anything in that market for interfacing an aging demographic? That's my question. So this is one of the programs that we're running from the center that I lead. It's called the Internet of Caring Things. So we want to explore what are the things that we care about, not only the things that care about us, that we hope can open a new market for things that are more meaningful for us as humans. And now, just let me bring you to the end of my talk, showing some examples on how you can apply innovation to, let me say, everyday life. So this is a guy I met in Boston while I was working there. He's an amazing walking dogs. And what he's doing is bringing dogs out for the people that are not, at home, or that they don't have time to bring the dogs out. What if you bring the people out? So this guy on the left is called Chuck Mccarty. He was laid off from his previous job. He has basically no specific skill. He was working as a copywriter, but the thing he was good at was talking to others. So literally start putting the classic, post-it on poles in Los Angeles where he was, telling, look, if anyone wants a companion to have a walk, just call me. And it became now a global platform because a lot of people were at home alone. They have nobody to walk with. And Chuck Mccarty, not very different from the dog walker, did that stuff. Now, it's offensive for you if I compare Chuck Mccarty to a dog walker, but what if there is nobody that is bringing you out? You have nobody to walk with. Isn't it a smart idea? And then technology helps after. Yes, it becomes a platform. You don't need the post. You just can book it over your smartphone, whatsoever. But the idea is the important thing. If there's people that needs and wants to talk with someone and have a walk, why not? And then why not think completely differently about when we will die? Because we will die. So why don't completely change the idea of what is death and make it something that is feasible with the planet that I was describing before? Or what about dating in a completely different way? For example, knowing the age of people before getting there so you don't feel discriminated because you try to hide yourself and saying at the first date on Tinder, how old are you? I'm roughly, and then someone just overcome you. Or dating for just meeting others, not necessarily to have a sexual relation. Or Rendiver, which has done, let me say, opened the way. Again, this is based in Cambridge, very smart. They started almost 7-8 years ago with using virtual reality to help people that couldn't travel to go somewhere just with their fantasy and a good power of virtual reality, or people who has dementia and they wanted to leave back some experiences. And they're so well accepted by people. Did we think that could work? Well, if you don't try, you don't ask, how could you know? For example, would you like to be supported psychologically by an application? Probably not. Maybe it's better to have a human psychiatrist talking with you, but if there's nobody around, then this could be a good idea for helping others. Or this platform, which is called Ageist, that started literally 10 years ago, just portraying people in their process of aging in a very, I would say, stylish but normal way, and now it's become one of the biggest media that you can find on the topic. So if you want to have suggestion about what it doesn't mean to age in 2022, have a look at this place. Or this initiative, which is called the Embassies, which is in Zurich. Let me tell you, just for the upper affluent, this one. But if you go there, and whatever age you have, you will tell me, oh, Nick, I want to spend my holiday here. So it's an idea of a retirement home for people in the retiring process that is completely different from what you ever thought before. Can we make it more affordable? I think yes. There's a lot happening in the space of women. I know you know, but let me remind to all of you how much research we have done in the past, only thinking about men as a sample of our research. Basically, I think 9 over 10 studies for drugs development or all the innovation related to biology has been done without a specific thinking of women as different from men. Now, finally, we realize we can develop more specific research. And there's a lot happening in the space of the so-called sector now framed as femtech, which was designed in the beginning for birth control, but now, for example, is entering heavily in the space of menopause. And look how many companies now are entering this space to help women having healthier, longer life, which are different from men. Andropause is something that is happening anyway to us men. Nobody wants to talk about it. At least we're starting from menopause. I think the next frontier will be andropause. Think about diversity. It doesn't mean that you get older, you're not gay anymore, for example, but that's our mindset. There's not an idea of people which is diverse in the process of aging. Oh, you're older, you're not that way, which is absolutely crazy. And again, it's another huge space of considering us for who we are all over the process of age. Now, there are entities that are educating others to understand what does it mean to age. And this is one academy that teaches you what to do in your second side of your life. Let me say, if 50 is our first side of the life and thinking about the U curve, that's the second side of your life. And these guys is teaching you, okay, what do you want to do next in your life? And you can learn a lot in the process of life. You never stop learning. So why not offering things for people that maybe it's not coded by all the educational system and all the marketing system that we deal every day, or you can work in later life. So this is a company called Wave, which is a work at home vintage experts, people that are experts and just they have their age, whatever it is, and they can be recruited back by companies to bring the expertise that these companies need. Because it's a stupid thing to think that you just lay off people because of retirement. You can have a cheaper resource coming to your organization. And then what do? What is all the experience that has been go through all the stages of your organization that it's so much needed to run your business, not just to stay alive? And finally, going to space to benefit Earth. There are companies now, they're opening new frontiers about our future. And guess what they're doing? Not only bringing some satellite into space, they're making your dream come true, because you can become an astronaut if you're 90 or if you're 80, and maybe it was the dream of your young life. Now you can. And probably the next stage will be Mars, as we all know. Now, my very last thing, like many of you who are from Boston, we lived the opening, let me say, of marijuana and cannabis as not necessarily only a therapeutic, but also a recreational type of drug. And in Massachusetts, it happened literally 4 or 5 years ago. So in the beginning, when it happened, the customers of this type of products were typically younger ones. And that has been for the first year and a half. But now the people who's buying this type of supplement and the growth is all people over 65, meaning that sometimes we have so many bias and prejudice about the things around us that we don't even see the reality or even see what people really want. Forget about what they need, because we keep on thinking about what we should need in later life. Did we ask what they want, and why not? For example, this type of things, which is something that we should have to deal with in the future. So we also have to change the mindset of how we see life, because the longer I live, the more beautiful life becomes, as Frank Lloyd Wright said. So my suggestion is, so why stop when the best starts? Thank you so much. Happy to take any question and open a discussion. I hope there will be a discussion.
Nick, absolutely. What a fantastic presentation. Always provocative. Every slide triggers ideas, questions. I'm sitting here in a room of other people, and they were discussing while you were talking. They couldn't stop because every idea was triggering people to discuss something like, yes, that's right, and all that. So first and foremost, as always, Nick, you delivered. Thank you for that. I have a question to get things started. So in the audience, we got people. Please, put your hand up if you are inside our studio right now, if you have a question, and we'll try and bring you on for the questions also. But and if you are watching this on YouTube or on LinkedIn or on Facebook, please post your questions, and our team is trying to grab those questions and bring them together also. Nick, there's an organization at Harvard which basically has been looking at advertisements of companies, and you run a app on it, and it immediately tells you whether it is being inclusive of race, of colors and skin colors and all that. Yeah, are there apps like that for ageism? Because it's clear that we only want to look at young people or healthy people or fit looking people. Is there something like that? And is that what you're advocating, saying, hey, all of you guys should be paying attention? Hey, H&M, hey, car companies, hey, phone companies, you are marketing differently and you're shaming us who are beginning to age. I don't know, just a provocation on that topic and get you started.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely that way, Itendra. Let me tell you, I can't name a company we're advising, but let me say a big multinational in consumer goods. Their customer segmentation as a classic segmentation up to 55 plus. 55 plus is one category. So it means that they have no segmentation for the 60 or the 65. For example, we frame the baby boomers. I am a baby boomer. Between 1946 and 1964, okay? Now, think how broad is the basin of the baby boomers, and think how different we are within that basin, how we can frame ourselves as a whole baby boomers. Because I am very different from people which is 75, who should be a baby boomers as well, or even people of 65. I'm in a different stage of my life. And think about these companies that instead of trying to understand us, which we are changing, by the way, we're not anymore the 1890s that we have ahead of us. All the new old people like myself, that will be very different from the old people that are there now. And my point is just how possible these companies still don't see these differences within us as a customer target. And if you just go around and who is in its own stage of life, how many things you recognize that has been designed for you? And again, yes, depending on your stage of life, you will see a lot of things. There's a lot of attention on Gen Z, obviously. There's a lot of attention on millennials, but what about the others? And what about the power that they have, not only from an economic perspective, which is obviously higher, but also from the innovation perspective. We're looking for innovative things that are not targeted to us, are not designed for us. Nobody asked us. So the point is that there is a huge space also to explore the idea that the differences and also the idea of discrimination, because Itendra, you were somehow suggesting, obviously all these research group in the classic diversity, equity, and inclusion departments in the companies, I have advised many of those. And typically, we were literally sat in chairs and you have gender, you have ethnicity. And then I was there trying to tell them, look, I am all of you. Because it's independent from whatever origin or background. It's just something that it's happening to all of us. And typically, this is not considered yet as a discrimination. So just to let you know how far we are from also introducing right policies within organizations that are beyond the basic idea of retirement, because retirement is the only topic which is on the table. What about what we want? Forget about retirement in our process of aging. And this is hitting women. You don't have an idea how bad is hitting women. It's called double jeopardy. Technically, it's called a gendered ageism. So older women are even more discriminated than men in the process of aging in the organization. And basically, nobody's doing anything about it.
Good. Nick, again, you're provoking as always. And I hope the audience are getting ideas of what they could do. I was thinking, why not create a institute for checking advertisements and saying your ad has been approved for ageism or non-ageism. And similarly, I can see a whole bunch of teenagers getting jobs from dog walking to go down the street and ask where are all the grandparents or all the parents who are retired, and say, let's go take a walk. And just like a coach, we can have other businesses emerging out of these things. In terms of specific things that governments can do, what are the things that governments can push on? Like the Dubai government is a partner on this thing, and they are small enough as a government to be able to make change at a city level. So this changes that you're looking for, are they happening at the city level? What can government do? Is it at the president's level, the governor's level, the mayor's level? Where should we start?
Yeah, so I think there are two things that I may suggest could be, well, three things. The first one, being together today, is the first one. So the GCIO, I think it's a fantastic initiative, because if we drop the topic, like all the other topics, Itendo, do not misunderstand me. I don't think this is mine, so it's more important than others. But climate change, all those angles in a center that it's looking for innovation, I think it's so important, because then we can obviously create a culture, a common culture that then can influence the CXO board that are, you know, those that make the policies. That's why for us it's so important to try to work with big corporations, not because it's fancy, but if we enter in the space of a CXO board, or we can advise a CMO of a big company, then we can create a culture which is eating millions of people. First one. The second is from a government perspective. I guess the example of UK, it's a good example. There are really very few governments that have decided to put investment in research, not necessarily in the classic buzzwords, space, AI, blah, but putting aging as one of those dimensions. Why is smart? Because obviously, do you want just to help to make the planet cleaner for what? For observing the dunes beautifully at the sunset? And who is observing the dunes? You and me. So climate change and all the things we do to produce better energy, it's for us. It's not for an ideal planet that it's, you know, floating around in space without anybody there, because otherwise nobody will care about. And again, every initiative we do, space race, everything, who is the terminal of those innovations? Us as men and women. So that's why I think it's important to put aging, since it's affecting all of us, as one of the innovations that can benefit from all the other innovation. So one suggestion is, why not promoting research from the governmental perspective like all the others? It's cool and innovative, like have you seen before, the Saudi government decided to invest heavily in that space. So what I'm saying is cool and innovative to explore a smart way of innovation around aging. There are many. And again, it's not necessarily only biology. The last point is what city can do. So we are promoting together with Jimmy, an approach that can suggest the role of cities. Cities are important because they are an interface. They are a touch point where we live. Now, we are doing a lot also in rural areas, but let me say the urbanization of this planet is something that we should have to consider. So the point is, do we want the cities just to be a passive element or an actor that it's just, you know, providing ramps for wheelchairs and some benches and toilets, which is so much needed. But this is very passive. It's just like what I was trying to say before, it's aging. Can we do something for longevity? So we can we suggest the cities to become a proactive actor in the field and suggest behaviors, change behaviors. So if you go and you do your daily life, you go to a movie, you go to a restaurant, you go to a museum, can you have signals there can suggest you what could be a better behaviors? So can the cities also become a sort of a promoter of different lifestyles, can introduce us a cultural movement that, if it's made by a network of cities, can show that you are not only going to visit Rome or Abu Dhabi or Dubai for the sake of the beauty around there, but also you can understand more about yourself in every of those visits. So that's a program that we're running. It's called Longevity City, and we're creating literally now the network of cities, and we will present this network later in the year. So I hope that we could have some chances to talk with the people in the call that can join us in this journey. Are you muted, Tendra?
Very good, thank you. What Nick was talking about is the Global Innovation Management Institute, in partnership with Nick's organization, the UK Institute of Aging, is basically inviting partners to do a study on cities and aging and what can cities do. And so anybody on the call, we got partners on the GCIO from Bogota, who's on the call right now. We've got partners in Abu Dhabi. We've got partners in big cities across Brazil and the United States. We would like to invite you to all join on this effort, because what we can create, and this conversation on the chat going on, is create a movement. The movement is, Nick is kind of thrown the pebble in the middle of the lake. The ripple has started, and we need other people to push this ripple out and grow it. And the movement can start at grassroots level with aging population themselves, and they could do it. But there are other segments you can go after. And so we invite you on this conversation. So write this down, contact us to talk about what we can do next. I have a question, a question which came along with this thing. There was one question about ethics. And this shows up a lot of time where there's strong religious communities, where they feel that we are intervening in extending life versus having a natural process by which life ends. And I didn't hear you say about extending life. What you were saying was we are just going to live longer because our societies are, there's better medical care, better awareness of what we put in is what we get out, attitudes and all this kind of things. Just want to make sure, well, what do you mind just making a comment on the medical advancement of actually intervening on this to extend life?
Yeah. So I think it's absolutely a good point. Thanks for the question. It's important we clarify these things as much as we can. So again, let me say back again what I tried to say before. Healthy longevity, it's the measurement physically of a health span in good health. Okay. In good health, first of all, doesn't mean that you don't have to have any conditions. Okay, so typically we just get older, we typically acquire some diseases, but that's what is happening. Research and innovation is helping you, or are helping you, to live healthier lives anyway. So if you have diabetes, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, could be literally a very harmful disease. Today, you can live with diabetes and have a quite high quality of life. I'm just mentioning diabetes as one of the examples. So the first thing is that anyway, we would like to avoid much more people, as much as we can, to have certain conditions by design, so that the concept of a healthy lifespan is also reducing the several conditions that could happen in later life. That is what we're discussing about. It's healthy longevity. That's one dimension. Then if you want to talk about how much people will live in the future, well, there's many studies and there is a number out there. You know probably that the person who lived the most in the history of humanity is Jeanne Calment. She lived 126 years. Now, there's also some discussion if that number is true or not. But let me say, we never, ever have gone any farther than that age. Now, there's some suggesting that it could happen that we could live even longer than that. 130, 140, do we really care about it? Because we don't have to yet consider one factor. What is as being the exposure of us as humans to the pollution that we're living right now? So yes, theoretically, you could go there, but there are many factors around us that we should have to start considering as things that could affect our process of aging. So it's not a matter of numbers. It's a matter of the life you live in the place where you're living this life, in the educational, societal condition, how that could be the healthier, longer lifespan that we can somehow support and suggest. Then you have, by design, researchers which are going farther, and you can stop them. You can't, because that's what is happening from all the ambition of men to become, to show how much intelligence we are, men and women, how intelligent we are. That's called progress. Can you stop progress? We can open a debate if you want on this page, but the point is that probably you can't. However, you know that some of that progress is benefiting you. Could we have a vaccine for COVID if we didn't have that progress that helped us to design a vaccine in a completely different way? Before, it could have taken 10 years to have one, and we did it in 1 year. So what that progress is coming from? That's my question. And it's coming from the same progress, right? It's a matter of how you use the innovation and technology in an ethical way. Now, we need the ethical principle. That's why you see my presentation is twofolded. The first fold is the dream of the potential of research, but the second fold is in what society? And that society, it's us. So it's us that have to bring the topic of the discrimination. It's us that have to understand and explain what's the bias. It's us to have defined what are the rules. That's why governments are so important in this discussion.
Nick, this is great. We got a hand up from Ron. He's gonna ask a question. Hang on a second though. Just to make sure I bring this thing to simplicity. You may not know why climate change is happening. You may not agree why climate change is happening, but climate change is happening. That creates a change in how we look at the world and how we approach the world. In the same way, you may not understand why people are living longer and what are the issues around it, but people are living longer, and there's a lot of people out there who are living longer, and what can we do about them? And what can we do to make their lives better? And what can we do to create opportunities around these things? That's what Nick is talking about. So there's a whole bunch of things in here that we are, there's a trend. And on that trend, we are not even prepared to really discuss it in a productive way with a common language, common frameworks. And Nick is creating that with his institute, along with the GCIO and all of us together to say this is important.
Yes, sorry, you said one thing very important. If we look at, let me say, in a scientific way, like in an abstraction of what we're discussing, there are two mega trends that we can't dismiss, we can't avoid to see them: climate change and aging. All the rest are, let me say, smaller trends. But the two mega trends happening to this planet right now, if you observe it as a researcher, observing what is happening on the planet, these are the two mega trends. And the fact that we are not considering, first of all, the two correlated, which is already such a silly thing. But if you think also about the investment and the potential of putting together these two factors on how we can somehow implement the solution for one that could affect the other and vice versa, well, it's something that we should have to consider. But from an observation perspective, these two things are happening right now to our planet.
Nick, we are coming to the end of our topic today. I think today we covered probably one of the most important topics of what's facing our society, as you said, a mega trend. My appeal to everybody who's in the audience, we've got people in academia. You guys are professors, you guys are teachers. This is a topic to start the discussion. Number one, we've got people from corporations, chief innovation officers of cement companies, of car companies, of skincare, beauty care companies. We've got all kinds of chief innovation officers who are listening to this thing. What is your opportunity or threat that you're missing out on around this space? Reach out to us. I think what Nick is trying to aggregate is communities, a lot of like-minded communities of people, whether it's universities or colleges, or whether it's industry players who are saying we want to learn more about these things. And then we can accelerate the knowledge through research, through partnerships with the Global Innovation Management Institute and the Innovation Olympics. And let's create the body of knowledge. Let's create evangelists. Let's create champions across the globe and address this issue. Address this issue as quickly as possible and not wait for it. And for many of us, we are all beginning to be on the second side of 50 also. So we can't wait for the young people to figure it out. We also have a role to play in here. And then let's create the evangelists, the spokespeople and everything else. So for me, Nick is a fantastic partner. He's the change agent. He's the catalyst. He's provoked all of you. All of you have been provoked today. What are you going to do about this thing? And that's our challenge. Nick, you have 1 minute, your last words.
My last words? Oh, I was not ready for this one. Join us. I mean, what else I can say? I mean, I think women have to stand up literally first before anybody else. They're discriminated more than anybody else in the daily life, and getting older for a woman, feeling and thinking about the stereotypes associated to the concept of beauty is something that we have to challenge. Challenge it properly, wisely. We are not Talibans that are looking for, to literally just go with one dogma. It's just respecting the individuality that we typically tend to forget because we put all of us in the same box. It's not, and it's sometimes, the times is coming for us just to consider ourselves as individuals in this big process of aging, because otherwise, if we don't start the change, the consequences will be very, very bad for our society. Sorry for this bad final address.
No worries, Nick. Again, this is our webinar series from the Global Council for Innovative Organizations. We do this every month, and we'll continue to bring in outstanding speakers on topics that make you say, I didn't know that. And with that, thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Start the journey, reach out to each other, and our mantra remains the same. Together, we can. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the week.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, Nitendra.
Thank you.